Hi everyone, I'm Alan Wong, Public Information Officer for the Contra Costa County Employment and Human Services Department. Welcome to a forum of candidates running for 2 seats on the Clayton City Council. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa Elections Division, Contra Costa Television, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, and the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County. We're recording this roundtable discussion in the studios of Contra Costa Television. Our candidates are David Shuey, Jeff Wan, Carl C.W. Wolfe, and Brian Buddell. We drew lots before the show to determine the speaking order, so we're going to begin with David Shuey. And David, if you're elected, what will be your priority for the city of Clayton?
My priority will be the same as has been for the last 4 terms that I've served for 16 years, and that is to do what is best for the city as a whole, to ensure that we as a city survive the pass-throughs from the state for all of the issues that they want to push on without any funding, to keep Clayton one of the safest cities in the state, to continue to ensure that our education is among the best for our kids, and basically just to keep our trail system and our activities, our services going. We have kept a balanced budget for all the time that I've been on the council, except for 1 small year during the recession, but I want to keep doing that, provide services, keep a balanced budget, and keep us safe.
Jeff Wan, what would your priority be if you're elected?
One of my top priorities would be to address public safety in the city. Recently, the City Council passed an ordinance regarding parolee housing that did not go far enough to protect all the residents of our city. In addition, the development of our downtown and other areas of the city has been quite poor. The city has been attempting to sell off a number of our lots to outside developers, as well as allowing high-density housing in our downtown, which would change the character of our city.
All right. Carl C.W. Wolfe, what would your priority be?
Well, I think we're at a crossroads in the city of Clayton right now, and I think what we need is a new vision. So what I would like to do is to bring the citizens together as a coalition to bring their vision to what Clayton should be. I have my vision. I think it's a great vision, but as a former creative director, my job was to bring creative people together, direct them. Creative people can be very pig-headed sometimes, and I think that once you get them together and you show that they're great ideas, that a new vision can happen. And so where we're going to go with Clayton, I think is going to be up to the majority of the citizens. So that's what I want to do.
Brian Buddell, what would your priority be?
My priority is actually twofold, Alan. It would be to, 1, bring a voice back of the citizens back to their government, and also to provide direct representation. Over the past year and a half, there's been a pattern of the City Council and Planning Commission ignoring the will and the voters of the city. And that has resulted in a lot of things, some of which Mr. Wan has talked about, but it's been a disregard of the voice of the voter. My position would be to restore that, establish open communications, which has been lacking with the voters, and vote how they tell me to vote, not how I think I should vote.
Thank you. Jeff Wan, city leaders recently approved a policy that restricts housing for those under a supervised jail release. Is that fair?
It certainly is fair. What is not fair is how the city went about doing that restriction. The restriction that they imposed was ill-conceived and not well thought out. The city had approximately 2 years to address this issue after they passed the first moratorium, and in that time they took no action. The way that the city handled it was not very good. They didn't do their due diligence. They did not consult with outside counsel to determine what restrictions they could actually put in place. And at the end, after they passed their initial ordinance, they had to go back to the drawing board and amend it after both Brian and myself recommended that they do so. So it is fair that they do so, and they should have done a lot more.
Carl Wolfe, restricting housing for supervised jail release. Is that
I
fair?
don't think the planning commission, and I'm a planning commissioner, and I was chairperson at the time of the planning commission, is getting enough credit for the idea that we took a look at the ordinance, the measure, and voted unanimously to send it back to the city council with a no vote. We felt at that time we weren't getting enough information and that the circle was too small. And actually it was the planning commission that stepped up and made the circle larger. We asked the city council to take a second look at it, and that's what they did.
Brian Buddell, is that fair?
Well, it's fair in the sense that they took a look at it, but they took a look at it after both me and Mr. Wan made our recommendations. They actually adopted a 1,000-foot radius that I suggested.
That's not true.
I don't think we're supposed to interrupt each other, Mr. Wolfe. And I extended that.
But you've got to stick to the facts. The actual, Bassam Atwal, actually, one of our commissioners made that recommendation, and it's a matter of public record.
Well, what I know is what the records show, and the records are quite clear, that the city council made recommendations, relied on flawed information by our city attorney only after an outcry of citizens, partly led by me, but I'm not going to take all the credit for that, and also a lot of recommendations by me as to how it could be modified. They finally did make some changes. However, they didn't go far enough, and in so doing, they actually exposed 2 areas of the city, totally turning their back on 2 neighborhoods in Clayton with respect to this issue. That won't happen when I'm on city council.
David Shuey, do you think that was fair, what happened?
It was fair, and it was making lemonade out of lemons. We had no choice in the matter. Mr. Buddell and Mr. Wan wanted us to put a complete ban of parolees, which would have resulted in litigation. And we did the best we could, taking staff's considerations, input, and we put the most restrictive measure in that we could to protect citizens. Necessarily, there are going to be areas that are impacted, potentially. The reality is these parolee housing is probably never going to go into Clayton due to our demographics and cost, but we had to regulate it. Otherwise, if it was unregulated, then the county could put them in anywhere without notice to any of our citizens, and they could be living next door. By regulating it, we now have the ability to control it and to know where they are if they ever come in there. It is extremely fair. It is as restrictive as we can make it.
You're saying it may never happen?
The fact of parolee housing coming into Clayton when you can go to Pittsburgh for a third of the price, or go into a city in Contra Costa that doesn't regulate it, that doesn't require a permit, makes it very unlikely that we're going to be a high choice for parolee housing.
Speaking of housing, Carl, what's more important for the city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing and utilizing the homes and storefronts that you have right now?
Well, I think with the way the economy has changed, when we took a look at our downtown specific plan, which was developed in 1990, that was 1990 economics. It was reviewed again in 2012, that was 2012 economics. And now we had no idea, of course, that Amazon was going to take over the world. And as far as mom and pop shops or little storefronts, in a town like Clayton is a very, very difficult proposition. We've seen, in my 30 years there, I've seen lots of shops come and go, ice cream shops, toy stores, coffee, you name it. We don't have a drive-through in Clayton. You can't go through the city, really. It's not like a Danville or a Pleasanton. So we have to take a look at our downtown specific plan now and work it to the advantage of the people. And that may not be little storefronts and little shops. Maybe we need artisans more. Maybe we need other activities in Clayton other than just the downtown shops. As far as housing is concerned, we'll take a look at that as well.
Brian Buddell, what's more important right now, building new homes and commercial space, or just better utilizing what you guys have right now?
It's better utilizing it, but I think the operative word is better. What we've seen in the past year and a half in particular is a city council and planning commission that is embracing big development and bringing things in that are simply not Clayton. One of the reasons I moved to Clayton was because of its small town charm. And I don't want to change anything. I want to keep that that way. But what we've seen over the past year in particular is an embracing by the city council in particular of big developments, entering into exclusive negotiation agreements for big, behemoth, multi-story buildings in downtown, which simply don't belong. That's not Clayton. The people have absolutely said that's not what we want, yet they've moved forward with it. It goes back to the communication thing, Alan. we need to do what the people want, not what the city council thinks is best. And that's how I would approach this if I was in the city council. It's not my decision.
David Shuey, where do you stand on that?
Well, a lot of that can be driven by the individual property owners. We don't have the ability to control if they want to build or don't want to build. We have taken a very active role in downtown. In fact, we bought the downtown property that is subject to so much debate so that we could control our destiny. And that's what we're doing and what we have been doing for years, trying to put it out there and seeing what type of development we can get. Do we like this development? If we don't like this development, it's back to the drawing board. That's what happened. That's what will continue to happen. In addition to that, we have to look at encouraging those businesses that are still in town. What can we do to help you? Our small coffee shop, what can we do? Bridging the gap to try and get them in there, making sure that our storefronts are full, but we also must maintain the retail base in that situation.
Jeff?
Well, what Mr. Shuey says about the downtown lot is true. We did buy it, but about seeing what we can do with the space, that's not true. Immediately after purchasing the property, the City Council entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement with an outside developer to put in a senior memory care facility, or an assisted living facility, sorry. And on 4 separate occasions, they either entered into these exclusive negotiation agreements or amended them with multiple different developers, all in the hopes of putting in some kind of care facility in downtown. So the idea that they want to see what was going to go there is not true. They knew what they wanted there, and they made efforts to go that way ever since they purchased the property. And in addition to that, the other properties that are part of the town-specific plan that Mr. Wolfe mentions, the council has been engaged in a long-term effort to rezone these properties that allow large buildings, as Mr. Buddell mentions. We're talking about multiple 3-story buildings with high-density rental units that are being planned. And that is what the council has been doing over the past, since at least 2012. That shouldn't be the case, and if elected, those are things that I would put a stop to.
Brian Buddell, how do you want to see downtown Clayton developed?
The short answer, Alan, is I don't. People have asked me, what is my vision for Clayton? And my vision for Clayton is exactly what it looks like now. Now, that's not to say I don't want to see any change, but we've got wonderful downtown festivals that occur, and the proposals that have been run up the flagpole and looked at seriously by our city council would negate the ability to do that. The property we've been talking about is used to put rides for kids and booths and car shows and things like that. Under the proposals that have been embraced by the city and the planning commission in large part, those would go away because there's no place for them. So what I want to see is I want to see that space utilized in a way that it would benefit all of Clayton, not just some assisted care facility, but would allow for public events as well as being able to keep it in the state that it is, or at least open so that the events we already have are able to maintain. So I don't want change. I want, maybe improve a little bit and reach out to the public to see maybe how we could best do that.
How about you, David? How do you want to see the city develop?
Very conservatively and with a thoughtful consideration to the proper use. Mr. Wan is incorrect in indicating that as soon as we bought the property, we entered into these negotiating agreements with an intent to put this in there. There is a process which I am very familiar with, having spent 20 years volunteering and putting my time into the city. You have to go through a process with the property owner in order to determine whether or not it's an appropriate use. We have done that consistently. I have been, for all the time I've been on there, I have been a proponent of, if it doesn't fit, keep it the way it is so that we can use it for our festivals. But that land, we don't get property tax on it now. We don't get revenue from any businesses. So we owe it to the city to look at what options are there. And if there are proper options that will make sense, then we will do that. To date, there have been none. Despite what they've said, we have done the process and we're following through.
Jeff Wan, how do you want to see your city develop?
Slowly. I think that any development that we take needs to preserve the ability to maintain the festivals and events that we have in our downtown. But, ultimately, our town-specific plan was created many years ago in a different time. And one of the things that we should do as a council is to reassess the viability of our downtown-specific plan. I see a vibrant downtown with a lot of local businesses, something that can exist and still preserve the ability for us to have these events. What we need to do is stop selling the land that we own to outside developers so that they can put in whatever they want.
Thank you. I guess we're back to Mr. Shuey. Do you support zoning apartments and condos near commercial districts?
Well, we don't have a choice in what we do in everything we do. The high-density housing zoning was mandated back quite a while ago by the state, and every city, as part of their certified housing plan, had to designate certain parts of the cities as high density. We did that. And if we didn't do that and we didn't get a certified housing element, we would have lost all of our transportation funds that we use on a yearly basis to keep our streets rehabbed. We have probably the highest street index in the county, if not the state. We're very top of that. If we did not designate the high density the way we did, we would have lost all those funds and our streets and roads would have been in very poor shape. We don't have a choice in a lot of things we do. What we can do is we can take what the state gives us and we can make sure that if there is a development there, it's done to the best of our satisfaction, including the look and the feel and the height requirements, all of that. But we can't just willy-nilly say we don't want it, it can't go there.
Carl, C.W. Wolfe, how would you like to see your city grow?
Just call me CW.
Okay.
You know, I differ a bit from my colleagues here. I would like to see development in downtown Clayton and some growth in downtown Clayton, although I look at it as responsible growth. We have done this many times in the past with responsible growth in Clayton. For instance, years ago we had a gas station proposal. The citizens came out against the gas station, which it was the right thing to do at the time. We now have a lovely CVS on that property. That's responsible growth. Same thing with our Clayton Station Shopping Center. That was a bone of contention for a while, and now we have a lovely shopping center there that's bringing in revenue. That's responsible growth. Now in downtown Clayton, we have to take a look at our downtown specific plan because, again, it was developed many, many years ago and just reviewed in 2012, but the economy has changed a great deal since then. And now I think we have to take a look at the vision of our community. I keep going back to the vision because that's my mantra. I think that the citizens need to come together and decide what kind of time, what kind of town we are going to be in Clayton.
All right. David Shuey, there was a signed ordinance that recently was passed, and some people feel like it restricts their political speech. Where do you stand on that?
Well, that sign ordinance is actually not just restricting political speech. We've had a sign ordinance in Clayton for as long as I've been on the council. It is something that speaks to the size, location, and duration of signs. It doesn't have anything to do with content, so it's not restricting anybody's free speech or rights. What is fascinating to me is that we've had at least 4 elections under that sign policy of we try and keep one sign per property and we have no signs in the public right-of-way so that we can keep away the clutter and be different from other cities. And Mr. Buddell and Mr. Wan decided that they want to flaunt that law and that law is somehow restricting their free speech. It's not. It's perfectly legal, and they decided that they don't want to follow it. I find that hard to believe that you want somebody on the council that is willing to flaunt the laws that have been in place in Clayton for quite a while.
Jeff Wan, you disagree with him?
I do. The sign ordinance did exist in Clayton for a number of years. However, in 2017, the council modified the ordinance to make it more restrictive. In the past, the ordinance allowed a much greater aggregate square footage of signage on a property. In Clayton, we have a city council of 5 people, and every year, alternating every 2, there's 3 seats and 2 seats up for election. And so with the sign ordinance in place, a person living on their property only has room within that aggregate square foot to put up a sign for 1 candidate. And so it doesn't allow people to express their support or lack of support for the number of seats that are up for election. And that's just our local government. The elections at the state, county, federal level would also fall under the same ordinance. The protections for free speech for people is at their zenith when you talk about political speech. And an overly restrictive ordinance that limits the signs available to be posted restricts that free speech. And it is unconstitutional. And you may challenge whether or not a council member should flaunt those rules. If the rules are unconstitutional, we should flaunt them and we should change them.
CW?
I'm a rule follower. I play by the rules. For some reason, they've put on websites that I have multiple signs at my property. That's absolutely not true. I have the allotted signs, and I will play by the rules and stick to it.
All right. And Brian?
Well, first of all, I want to correct CW there. He has 2 signs on his property, and I can take a picture of it, and that's absolutely in violation of the, well, maybe he doesn't now, but he did as of a few days ago. Look, here's what it comes down to, Alan. When this ordinance was being argued and passed, our own city attorney said that it's probably too restrictive. Mr. Shuey admitted that it would open the city to litigation. I don't understand how, as a city councilman, Mr. Shuey can pass and open the city to litigation, and in doing so restrict the speech of his fellow citizens. What this really plays to is, we all know that incumbents have a huge advantage when it comes to name recognition in an election. So to the extent the incumbents are able to tamp down or limit other interested candidates, that's going to work to their advantage, and that's exactly how this ordinance has played out. They have limited Jeff and my ability to get our name out there, relying on their name recognition all the time, acknowledging that it's a completely illegal ordinance.
Okay, let's switch gears. David Shuey, do you support zoning apartments and condos in or near commercial districts?
Well, if you are going to zone for high density or apartments, you're going to want them near your commercial districts, because that's where the transportation is, that's where the food is. But the reality of, I think the question at hand here is, the state mandates that every city put a housing element into place, including high-density housing. Mr. Buddell and Mr. Wan do not want high-density housing in Clayton, but they don't get to make that choice. The state mandates it. We have done what we can to put into place zoning that will do the best we can with the regulations. If we don't have those regulations in place, if we don't put high-density zoning, then we do not get transportation funds that go to rehabbing our streets. Our streets are one of the best in the state, and if we didn't have the 300,000+ a year from that, if we just decided we don't want high density and we want to lose that money, our streets would be really poor, and our citizens don't want that.
Jeff Wan?
Well, again, I need to correct Mr. Shuey. I'm not opposed to high-density housing in general. I don't think high-density housing is appropriate for our downtown. Downtown is supposed to be a commercial district with our small shops for our small town. Having high-density residential housing crowds out that ability to do that. Now, when we talk about mandates and what is required, the city currently has a surplus of housing units that is part of this HUD plan. And so why we had to zone these properties adjacent to our downtown as high density, it doesn't make any sense. It wasn't a requirement, as Mr. Shuey says. Yes, we do need to have a certain amount of housing, and currently we have a surplus. And so it doesn't really make sense to have this in our downtown.
CW?
As a member of the Planning Commission, I'm limited to what I can say with regard to this. I will say that the votes are public, that the Planning Commission has done so far. I've been accused of voting for high-density housing. That's patently untrue. If you take a look at our record on the Planning Commission, whatever comes before us, we look at the law, we look at the all of the concept, all of the design, and we make a decision from that. But as long as I've been on the council, nothing has come before us at all. And with the exception of one thing that we reduced by 6 units because of the usable land, that project fell apart, is no longer before us. So when something comes before us, that's when we'll take a look at it at the Planning Commission. And we'll follow the law.
Brian Buddell?
I, in large part, agree with Mr. Wan. I don't oppose high-density housing as a general principle. It's a matter of what fits where. And as we've tried to stress, the downtown area is sacred in Clayton. We have multiple festivals every year, and what has been proposed is a 3-story, 3-unit building or complex, which doesn't have adequate parking for everyone that would live there, doesn't have adequate logistics to get in and out, and it would compromise not only the businesses there, but the ability to conduct our festivals in an orderly fashion, because we have people that come in for our festivals from not only Clayton but the surrounding areas. If all the street parking is taken up by these giant behemoth high-density housings that they're trying to put there, it just wouldn't happen. You know, there's a way of finding it, a place for it to go somewhere else if it's necessary. But like Jeff said, it's not necessary right now. We've already met our quota.
Okay, with that, I want to thank our candidates for answering these important questions. Each candidate will now have 1 minute to make a closing statement, and we'll begin with Brian Buddell.
Thanks, Alan. As many of you have heard me say before, I'm running for City Council in Clayton to provide you, the voter, with a voice and as well as an ear. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you want, and I will vote accordingly. I look at the job of City Council person as a difficult job with a simple description. I'm an elected official, which means you are my boss, not the other way around. And you can always count on me to look at Clayton with the eye of keeping Clayton Clayton, not changing it, not developing it, not embracing big business and development, and voting how you tell me to vote, not how I think I should vote. And that really sums it up.
Carl C.W. Wolfe.
Well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. You know, friends, the future is coming, and we can't stop that. It's going to take vision, planning, great leadership, and citizen input. In my 30 years in Clayton, I've seen Clayton evolve and grow in a positive way. Remember the debate on the gas station that we talked about earlier about building the Clayton Station Shopping Center, or even our Grove Park. These are all examples that I've mentioned, and there are many others that were issues requiring us to engage in conversation, talking with each other, not at each other. We need to examine the facts, and we did. And we made educated decisions that benefited all of Clayton. In my former job, I learned the art of compromise to bring positive results, and always kept an eye on fiscal responsibility, which we owe everyone in Clayton. I'm a proud CBCA volunteer, and that's a badge of honor that I wear, and I think it connects me closely to our community. So I take Clayton seriously because Clayton is my life's work, and I'm just getting started. Thank you.
Jeff Wan.
As long-term members of our city government, I am sure that Mr. Shuey and Mr. Wolfe have always acted with good intentions. Good intentions, however, don't always lead to good outcomes or decision-making. And in the past few years, the results of those decisions have led to some very poor outcomes. Ignoring parolee housing for over 2 years, knowing that it would be an issue, was bad decision-making. Agreeing to negotiate to sell our downtown lot to put in high-density housing and memory care facilities, that was bad decision-making. And if the results of these choices have been terrible, and if they were allowed to continue, they would permanently change the character of our city. But I have a different vision, one where we put the safety and integrity first, one where we have a vibrant downtown full of local businesses. We need to stop the development of high-density housing and the selling of our downtown lots. We can do better, and it's time for a change.
David Shuey.
Thank you to the League of Women and CCTV for putting this on. What is clear is that there are only 2 candidates that have the knowledge, the experience, and the proven commitment to the city. That's myself and CW. You as citizens deserve, and you should demand, that knowledge, experience, and proven commitment from your candidates. I have been involved for over 20 years in Clayton. I have been a volunteer for Little League, for the CBCA, for everything that brought Mr. Wan and Mr. Buddell to Clayton. I have been a part of that. I was the chair of the Downtown Grove Committee that put that park together, that designed it so that we could have our wonderful concerts in the Grove. I have been a part of all of the decisions that have gone through there. I have kept the city with a balanced budget. I have kept police and miscellaneous employees happy while keeping costs down. There's only 2 candidates that make sense, and those are the ones that have proven a commitment and the experience and the knowledge for the city, and I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
And that concludes our forum of candidates running for the Clayton City Council. Once again, the candidates are David Shuey, Jeff Wan, Carl C.W. Wolfe, and Brian Buddell. For more information on the candidates, visit the website votersedge.org. And to view this broadcast online, just go to cocovote.us. I'm Alan Wong, and don't forget to vote on the November 6th election. And remember, the deadline to register is October 22nd. Thanks for watching.